I would like to introduce you with our moderator, Martina Silov, and she will tell you who her guest is.
You can join me on the panel. Yeah. So, hello everyone. I would like, okay. It's not easy to have a panel before lunch, so congratulations for the effort already. We will try to be on time and maybe a bit shorter. And the easiest way is to kick off the panel, to introduce our panelists and have a short intro from your side, like what are you doing, what's your background, where are you right now, and so on. Tobias, we can start with you, please.
Yeah, sure. So pleasure to be here. I'm Tobias. I'm based in Hanover in Germany, and I run my own business. Rapid AI is an AI consulting company, so essentially helping businesses to adopt AI, to identify good AI use cases, but also help them making the first steps into production. And yeah, my background, like I've worked as a data scientist for many years in a larger corporation in Germany before like founding my own business. Originally, I studied business administration, so I'm looking forward to tying that in today in our talk with transforming businesses, and yeah, looking forward to this panel discussion.
Thank you, Tobias. Venkat, please.
Some of you may have been in the talk with me yesterday. I work for Rivian. I lead the product cloud data and AI platform organization. Our goal is how do we sort of get the data from our vehicle, more or less, and then get the value out of them, right? My experience has been broadly in data space. I've sort of worked in this space for more than 20 years across various startups and larger enterprises, across various industries, e-commerce a lot as well. And the goal has always been to sort of find and get value from the data. So, yeah.
Thank you, Venkat.
Okay,
Alin.
thank you. Hi, everybody, as well from my side. My name is Alin Kalam. I'm working right now for Unica. Some of you from Belgrade or Serbia might know this insurance company. Yeah, I'm right now leading the data area for this company in 14 plus countries. So majority of the topics that I have as well is pure data, let's say analytics, advanced analytics topics, but as well strategic topics as such as AI, which is, to me, of course, analytics or data analytics per se, but nonetheless, I also invest my time or resources as well investing in these kind of topics that can transform our giant business that Unique actually is. In my spare time, I opened up a startup as well in a sustainability area, working since a couple of years in that field. Otherwise, I teach at various universities just as a hobby to stay connected with the community. So yeah, looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you. So our topic today is, can AI, I would say, increase or transform businesses? I don't think we need an answer to that. We can all agree immediately that yes, but I think the main question here is how. Because we're constantly talking about AI, every tech company is talking about AI, every tech conference is talking about AI, but how the ecosystem is going to grow and how the ecosystem is going to transform is when we will be putting AI in other businesses. But how we plan to do that, how we plan to implement AI into one small, medium enterprise in traditional companies. Please.
I would actually say no, it can't transform enterprises.
No, come on, I like to fight.
No, because I think it's a bit about the formulation. If you ask like, can AI transform enterprises, and if we really mean transformation and not only like increase some value, then I think we have to acknowledge that AI itself, it's just a technology. It's a very, very powerful technology, but in the end, it's just a technology. And I have never seen a business transformed without all the cultural and people change behind that. And we always say like, okay, like, there's AI, but then there are people using it. But from my experience, that's often the hardest part. Like getting the majority of people adopted and using this technology. And of course, it can be a huge productivity gain. So I would like 100% agree that you can transform your business with AI. But I think just seeing AI as the main driver for business transformation, that's probably like kind of hitting the wrong target in a way, because we definitely have to start with people. And this is actually like what we've been doing in the data analytics space for the past like decade, like trying to get people onto this data analytics journey. And AI is kind of extending this because now it's not only about data analytics, but so many other use cases. But the challenge in the end is the same. Like how do you make people who are not technology aware familiar with technology, right? So, and I think this is like a huge challenge right now.
Actually, that was my topic later, but it's great that you mentioned that because I believe what I saw in the ecosystem, our biggest, I would say, obstacle would be how we're going to tell, I would say, the middle management, but even the C-level management, okay, you have to adapt to this new technology. How can you educate people about that? How can you make them aware, like, okay, this is something that is going to help you. Okay, it is just technology, but how we plan to do that? Please, Alin.
In general, I would say I will add up to what you said. Absolutely true. I think we'll be talking about the challenges as well, but it starts with people. Many say culture. These are like buzzwords as well in many contexts, but I'll give you a practical example. I think that helps always to somehow connect the reality as it is. So Unica, as I mentioned, it's a giant insurance company in Central and East Europe, active in 14 plus countries. So there are a bunch of potentials to implement or embed, let's call it like this, AI in our environment. My first trick is I don't tell, our C-level when I do it. I do it on my own, more or less, in my own kind of sandbox area to try it out, to understand what's going on, and as well emphasizing my surroundings to take them with me. So this is kind of a reskilling, upskilling topic. So I first try to somehow get this going in more or less in a smaller circle. And the example comes now. Let's say our call center. They are well-trained people. They are really made for serving people in need, right? Insurance. It says, if you're willing to hear something from us, something bad happened, right? You had an accident or whatever, let's say, yeah? I'm not wishing for this, but this is what is the case. So it's always a negative kind of approach when you talk with us as a company. So, and they are specialists in this. Now when I say, folks, we have now a new technology available, let's say, ChatGPT or whatsoever, and you can use it in your day-to-day communication to communicate better with our customers. Would you love to use it? And the majority of the employees, their answer will be no, because they know their game. They're so good in taking care of people in an all digital business. So the tricky part is for me more exactly in this region. I don't need even to, sell this to CIO or CEOs. They don't care. They care that our customers are well served. So what I do actually is I try to reskill or sometimes upskill those people. I send them into knowledge kind of transfer or let's say upskilling workshops, participating with some other people from IT and so on across the, let's say, company chain or value chain, and create this joint vision, kind of, let's try this out. Maybe this could be something for us. Maybe this really spares my time when I'm writing back an email to people. Let's see. So to create this, let's see, you need an openness. That's the biggest kind of challenge. And when this openness is given, C-level usually buys that because they are living in their buzzwordy worlds. And all you need to is really show that it is doable, it is embeddable. And if it's done, then it's the selling story is done quite easily.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just wanted to continue just for a second, but okay, you have people like you who are open-minded, who will always be on the cutting edge of technology, but you will have people who will never accept, like you said, new technology. It can be a new way of doing things. It doesn't have to be technology. How can you, what is like the first step? Actually, that can be a question to you also, Venkat, but what is the first step to convince these people to try this new technology?
I think we're going through something very similar in Rivian, for example, right? So arguably, AI has a huge potential in enabling everybody, right? Like it's more an enabler than complete business transformation. There are probably certain types of business that will get completely transformed, but more or less for most enterprises, even traditional enterprises, it's just going to be an enabler. I think the way we have sort of peeled this is probably like three different, I want to say tracks. There is one that we believe that could help the developers, like engineers. We've got tons of engineers that are doing various levels of development, from embedded to sort of all the way to web developments. How do we enable them, right? Like many of us are familiar with GitLab, GitHub type co-pilots that are available in all of these different systems. Those are ways. I think first thing is to get engineers excited. I think majority of what leaders want is how can I improve our productivity? How can I basically create value and capture value, right? Like that's what executives normally care about. I think from a productivity perspective, engineers' productivity increases if you actually leverage these technologies. In some ways, some of these are marketing too, right? Like if you look at it, when we put this in practice as a pilot for developers, for example, right? Our acceptance rate for commits are like about 10%, right? Like it's like number of people tried these systems across various languages, right? Like from automation systems like Terraform to like systems like Go and Rust and Java and those kinds of things. The acceptance rates are pretty light because the models today, like for example, GPT doesn't have all of the context of the code behind, right? But it's still a big enabler for engineers. Engineers still love the system in many ways because it basically makes them search Google less, right? So, I mean, we sort of took that as a data point. Similarly, we basically put this in use in customer care, we call them guides. Our approach is how do we enable them so that they can answer to customers quickly? Our products are evolving like crazy, right? Like every month we are updating new OTAs to our software. It is sort of moving at a pace that it's harder for these folks to catch up, right? We have a system that these guys can interact with to quickly know what's going on, right? Like something that quickly enables them. We're seeing amazing traction in terms of all of these guys jumping on this. It's not truly replacing the communication with customers. They are still extremely good at that. But how do we enable them to actually be more accurate and keep up to what's going on, right? And then of course there are these sort of really sort of usual thing about assistants, right? Like, I mean, that's like the future in some ways. It's like, how do we essentially have assistants or agents that are like far superior? I mean, the nirvana is somebody that can actually do a lot, but right now we are not there yet. But we're actually catching up. There are sort of step stones. You could essentially take a few of these things and potentially use them in minimum use cases, just as creating an assistant for a customer and so forth. And while we're doing all of this, what's happening is the senior leadership is looking at all of this, right? Like they're actually seeing, like I'm actually seeing value here. I see more engineers more excited. I see people that are supporting customers more excited now, right? We're not fully there yet, but our intention is to sort of get to a point where we build enough momentum for like fully getting sponsored on some of these things, right? That's the approach that we're taking.
Great. That's a great point of view. So thanks for that. But now I'm thinking about all my members. So in Korea, we have a lot of different members, and a lot of them are not from tech. For example, when I'm talking to CEO of hotel chain in Croatia, or even CEO of a bank, of a telecom, which are really progressive and they're following the technology, or you have a law firm and they're asking you, okay, I'm listening that this technology is really important, that it's everywhere, and I want to be on that cutting edge, I want to implement it. What is my first step? What would you tell to them?
So first of all, I usually recommend to recognize that this whole AI, and especially generative AI field, it's still very, very immature. I mean, we have all seen that in the last week. So in my opinion, it's still too early to kind of adopt and roll out the technology like across the whole company. So I think the responsibility of leadership right now is, and I talked about that in my talk yesterday, to identify use cases and so on. That's good. But it's also about giving tools and like technologies to the people in the organization who are already excited about that. So let's say you have an organization with 500 people, maybe you have 10 people in your organization, or 15 or 20, depending on what kind of organization you are, who are really eager and keen to use this technology. So the worst thing you can do right now is to say, okay, like we just forbid everything until we regulate this internally. So you should think about how can you enable these people to use their technology in a good way for your company. And this might involve just bringing these people together, like, find a community of people. Like, I know there are lots of companies where you have like Excel power users or all different kind of communities with like strange hobbies. Why not like put up a community that, is very excited about AI right now and just support them in what they do? I think this is step one. And as the whole field becomes more mature, I think then you need to really find a strategy on how to kind of roll that out in your organization. But hopefully you have at least learned until then what kind of use cases are really driving, AI use cases are really driving your business? Are we talking about productivity-based use cases? Are we more talking about like automated use cases? Are we talking about agents? Where is the field heading at? But it's just too early to answer that right now, especially for non-tech businesses. So yeah, I would definitely rally the crowd that is like just cheering for this technology and wanting to do something with it, because that's the easiest thing you can do. Like you can just try to keep the intrinsic motivation of people alive and then just support them with that. And in my experience, most organizations already have a lot of trouble doing this because they don't know who is excited about this. They just look at it from a very org chart level perspective.
Sorry.
Alin, I see you're ready.
I wanted to once again create a connection here. I think I'll give you again an example. I think they're really good sometimes. Not mine ones, but in general, with examples you can more connect with what we are talking about. Is when you do a calculation in physics, let's say. Yeah, I studied physics at some point of my life. Was quite good and tough, but you always are going out from the pure optimum. Right? If you're calculating how far is the next galaxy to us, which is Andromeda, by the way, you are calculating with the vacuum component. So it is like nothing else will come across. It's perfect. It's a shiny day. So in my case, so this is an aspect. So whenever I'm approaching as an executive these kind of topics, I always go out from like, okay, I have a happy customer there. He or she or they are perfectly served, happy. Their problem is solved. Now, how is this solution embedding or helping me doing that? If this is not the case, I take a step back and take a pause, because I can remember many years ago. Certainly, I was a big data specialist back then, right? So everyone was doing big data, right? And you would look exactly the same progressions there. Every week, some new tools. They were doing these big landscapes of tools, very overwhelming, very, very overwhelming. And that's what's happening with the AI hype once again. So what I think is, and that's the second aspect, is technology will come and go. AI technology will get better. Certainly we are not that mature yet, but your approach, your overall approach to a new topic, new technology, your soft skills, and that's the key word for me, at least in my organization, will stay. They remain, because that's how you're approaching it, right? So this openness can be learned. It can be trained. These soft skills around like, okay, we are not the first mover or we are like the late mover, it doesn't matter, but we have this certain realistic approach to that. And this is important for me because everyone is expecting like, oh, it will solve everything. Yeah, it will, tell me ChatGPT, what will happen here and there. So this will not solve our problems because we are not going out often from this optimum that we want to achieve actually. And fuzzing our path through this, amount of expectations that cannot be fulfilled, with these technologies that are coming up. So work on the skill sets, make sure that you train your organization or your people in this kind of approaching, and then I think you have a better go. I mean, if you have luck, you have open employees. You have luck, you have good bosses who believe you. Otherwise, usually you are struggling through this. Yeah, and yeah.
I will come back to you, but Venkat, I'm really interested in like what you have to
So,
say.
I mean, maybe just to add on to both of them, right? I think one of the things right now is also executives believe everything is possible with AI, right?
That's a good
it's like, can it write the whole thing, right? Can it write the whole application, right? So there is, I think, leaders and middle managers across the company, right, like our executives, depending upon who's sort of really following these technology developments, have to really bring these people up to speed, right? Mm-hmm. Like on what is truly possible, what's not possible, right? And actually show them, right? Like it's seeing it to really knowing it, instead of just reading about things, right? Like, because there is all sorts of content out there in internet, and majority are ChatGPT generated content. So it is sort of so confusing these days, but sort of really trying out and getting them access to some of these things so that they can see what's possible and what's not possible.
Okay, we talked a lot about employees, about C-level managers, and so on. But you mentioned customers. How do you see like the shift about a customer experience with AI? Because we will be able to do many things, and I see when I compare my generation to younger generation to older generation, how we see that customer experience totally differently. So, and that's one way to scale business. How do you see that?
Critically, because I mean, we tried out a retail unit or retail shop at Unica in the metaverse. Okay,
Oh.
it was a big thing 1.5 years ago. I think it's dead almost. So doesn't matter. It will outlive and develop by itself. But what I'm saying is, the customer is pretty often the first mover, but he's not the first there. That's what I experience. When something comes up, everyone plays around, everyone expects us to do something, which has, of course, a marketing value. Yeah, Unica does AI. Come on, we are good. But this works like for 1 month or a couple of, then it's gone, right? You cannot sell this to your customers. So what they actually expect is when they come to your website to buy an insurance product is like that it is transparently telling you what he or she needs actually, right? What their case is. If it's not able to do so, they're not reaching their goals. So if you can embed the chatbot, let's say with the OpenAI or other LLM technologies, and you are serving your customer the perfect way, then it's good. My answer here actually now comes the actual answer is, as a legacy company, as a traditional corporate company, we are still struggling with the basics like everyone else, like data quality, data availability. Sometimes we don't have even the data. Last time we discussed a little bit about the synthetic data. So there are lots of balloons in the air. And in this fuzzy kind of environment, you need to understand what is actually customer requirement towards us, because they actually are the most active and digitally active ones. Yes, of course, but they are not here to use the OpenAI solution on your website. That's what I'm saying. They have no clue what you're using or what you are offering, but they want their problem to be solved. And we exactly lose this kind of core component in implementing newer technologies, especially in AI field. And that's why even companies like Amazon, you would read, or Walmart are massively struggling, even though they should be kind of the masters of this game. Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky.
Tobias, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that especially when it comes to customer, and I work a lot with companies that especially like, have marketing units or work in customer support. Chatbots are obviously like great example here. And I think like I agree to the like extent that customers want to have their problem solved. And in addition to that, I think there are two components which always will like outlast technology, which is like given the quality is the same, customers will always want it faster and cheaper. So, and I think, and like these are actually two areas where AI can be really good at, like helping that. I'm not saying that this is like perfectly working out of the box right now, but for example, chatbots and customer support, like they can give you the same answer, just faster. That's a great use case for customers. And I think like identifying these, that's kind of like the tricky spot, because especially with generative AI, in many cases it works, but there are also some other cases where it doesn't work. So like, how do you handle that? That's a big topic. But I think if you just think about from the underlying principles, but like what customers actually want from your business and how AI can help support that. This is like, I think this is the key in the end. And this is also like how I think Jeff Bezos mentioned that sometime, of saying like whatever Amazon does, like there's one thing that will be certain: customers always want to have the cheapest product. Like, and whatever they do, it's kind of like targeting to this. And I think delivery speed. I don't know if there was another component, but like price was definitely one thing. So, and this is something
And
like
speed.
And this is some principle that will kind of outlast all technology. And if you're just able to deliver the same experience faster and cheaper than others, then like you're in a very good position.
Yeah. Venkat, what about you?
I mean, just to add to sort of what Tobias mentioned, our customer care, right? One particular use case that's on top of mind, right, like is when our customers raise a particular problem, right? They don't, I mean, like this potentially happens in many businesses too. They don't necessarily provide all the information. Sometimes they actually overdo information. That's actually great. And then there'll have to be somebody calling the customer back to basically ask them for more information, right? It happens all day, all the time. And then internally, there's probably some routing mechanism where that request goes to a particular team to actually get fixed, right? This is a very typical problem, and a problem that is sort of very one-on-one that could potentially be solved with something like an AI, right? It's a classification problem. Even sort of traditional AI could actually solve it in a nice way. And generative AI sort of makes it more compelling because this is a bot talking to you rather than a customer talking to you. I think for companies, it's an opportunity to reduce cost as well, I think, right? Like there is some aspect of that. And for customers, it's providing better service. It might not catch all of the issues, right? It might still have to sort of leave it to a particular customer care person to sort of really go find her. But maybe 80% of the things could potentially be caught as a first level.
And like sometimes I don't really care if it's a bot or a customer agent answer my question. For example, I have one example. Yesterday, I'm writing a newsletter, so I'm subscribing to this newsletter platform, like paying a bunch of money for this per year. And yesterday they ran a Black Friday sales campaign announcing 25% off of all our plans for new customers. And I'm like, okay, let's answer to that email and say, hey, can I get 20% off if I subscribe now for like already next year because I'm buying annual plans? And then there was an answer. I don't know if it's automated or a human saying, that's unfortunately not possible. Like it's just for new customers. And then I said, well, that's unfair, right? Like, how do we solve that? And just like a couple of minutes after, and like different name, right, from whoever it was, they said, okay, like here's a $95 coupon. Like we will just automatically apply to your account, right? And I was wondering, wait a minute, was this actually a human or not, right? But in the end, I don't care. Like my problem was solved in less than 1 hour, and I don't care how they do it, right? But for me, it was a good experience. Like I didn't get like the 20% off. That would have been way much money. But at least I got something, and the whole issue is handled and solved. And I think this is a good example. It wasn't even like a chatbot application. It was just email communication. And I thought to myself, well, how easy would that be actually? Just to maybe not do that fully automatically, but just help customer agents just respond to that query much quicker. For example, by saying like, okay, maybe automatically see, okay, like this customer, here are the options you can do, like these are the 3 email templates you can use to answer, just click through that and send them off. Instead of like calling your manager, checking, okay, this customer has this query, like, or thinking through this process before, like totally, and like evaluating all the different options that could happen. So yeah, this.
Great point. You had something?
So we were mentioning like faster, better, or continuously. I kind of agree and disagree with that, because the other day I really needed something like I had a delay with my airline, Lufthansa, by the way, and I needed at least, I think, 15 minutes to get to a human voice to tell someone about my problem while I was standing at the airport. So all I'm saying is this one fit for all approach right now, like, okay, cost cutting in background, because those guys, big guys, think exactly in these terms, right? They don't say it loud, but it means we can save up to 50% of my call center. So there is money. So the approach is following. What we are right now missing in many businesses in enabling or embedding AI is that we need to have a customized approach to customized topics. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it should be an image that you're generating. Sometimes it should be a chatbot. I'm saying chatbot is per se nothing bad, but if someone has died and I have a life insurance, I want to be there for that person instantly. But now how I filter this, yeah? I even wouldn't be right now, right? So you're in Ukraine, your house got bombed and you need a coverage or whatever. You don't, you must not tell to your customers, okay, wait in line for 2 hours. So all I'm saying is the approach we usually take in the West is like, okay, we will figure this out together. Let's see how this works. This is okay. This is innovation, how it is embedded. But then we miss out exactly to come back, take a step back and say, guys, how can we now really do it properly in each of those cases? And this is the biggest kind of challenge in business in embedding of AI, I think, right now, and it will be even getting worse. There's no form of worse, but in general, I think, this is a critical aspects. Aside from all the technical aspects that we know, availability of the data and quality, so on, that you need properly existing to train your models and so on.
Yeah, but one more thing I want to touch, which is also a huge problem, I would say, in this landscape filled with information and everything. How can companies separate the real AI opportunity or something valuable AI investment from a fraud, because everybody's talking about AI and a lot of people are already putting huge amount of money. I'm not talking about investments. I'm talking about like betting on some kind of startup. He's going to enter your company. He's going to create something. How can you separate what is good and bad, but what is valuable or not?
Can I add up?
Absolutely.
Then I will be, I think, done. Okay, let's ask a rhetoric question. How does a proper democracy work?
And then,
You know, just wait, just 1 second. I'm not going political, but from my point of view, it works when your citizens are more or less literate in different topics, like when they know their rights, when they know what's going on, when the system is transparent, and so on. And that's happening in the technology world as well. You have so many options. People have no clue sometimes how to deal with that. So there is no literacy existing within your within your company, and how can we then go out and literate our customers? So this is kind of my aspect to that, yeah?
so we need to educate people.
You need to educate, and this is right now our momentum to actually, education is a big word, but I call it reskill and upskill, more or less, yeah? You offer to an employee in call center and kind of an opportunity to become something new with that technology in his or her pocket, not without her in the first place, because that will not be the case. It doesn't look like it is a business run by human, done by human, for human, and we are implementing technologies that are right now in our back thoughts, in our back agenda, is like for eradicating this kind of interaction, which shouldn't be the case. So we should really take the best of both worlds and combine it, and that's, adds up, I think, to your answers as a question as well in some ways, which is really tough, yeah.
What about you, Tobias?
So coming back to this investment point, like there are two components to investment. You need to spend money and then you have some expected output. And I think calculating or making an estimate about the expected upside with AI currently, it's very, very hard to do because like there's so many unknown variables. So you have to kind of like always put a question mark behind the like expected result, whether that is productivity gain or other like financial incentives. So you can control the investment side, right? And this is where I typically say, whenever you can, try to like think in small increments, think in small, making small bets, making small iterative steps. Of course, having a budget that kind of supports a bigger and broader vision. But I would not recommend anyone spending like, I don't know, $20 million on funding an AI research team if you're like a just medium-sized organization in the hope for getting a very high output. Because it's very unlikely that this happens. So if you have $20 million, it's much better than instead like just funding, I don't know, 100 different projects, just see what takes off. And I think this is like, it comes down to like, how does management and leadership think about that topic? Is there actually one fund that's operating from that? But I think there's on the other side also a very good advantage because very often there are not separate AI budgets. But I do think that especially with like all the technology that we have, like ChatGPT, but there's also so many like AI as a service platforms out there or open source tools which you can use, that I would say like almost every business department probably has an AI use case which they can just fund out of their own pockets without actually going for another budget request. And even if it's as simple as buying a license for your users to use ChatGPT or whatever. And if you don't want to start with that, I would say you're not ready to commit to a full-scale large AI project. Like you have to first like take these steps, and because it also shows that you have realized that AI is a horizontal technology. I think the worst thing that can happen is that, and it happened with digitalization in a similar way, that companies start to create these like digitalization units inside companies, and I've been in one of those companies where you have now this huge digitalization unit. Maybe you have IT in there and some like digital transformation managers and everything. What happens? What happens is that everyone else in the organization is sitting there and thinking, these are the digital guys. Let's wait what they come up with, right? And let's wait until they transform our business. But this is not how it works. Like it starts with everyone. It starts with everyone at the bottom. And I think it's very similar to AI. If you start to centralize that, and like spending much is kind of like going into a centralized direction, like putting all the eggs into one basket. This is kind of the like contrarian view to what AI, in my opinion, is. I think most businesses won't see that one transformational use case where AI helps them to, I don't know what, achieve unlock outcome X, whatever that is for this business. But it will be like so many different smaller use cases, but they just add up at scale. And the easiest example is, you just imagine every employee using a tool like ChatGPT to become 10% more productive, right? I mean, that would be amazing if you achieve that. But even getting there is so hard.
Venkat, last words.
No, for sure. So I think in terms of investments, definitely do not invest for the fanciness, right? I mean, there is just so much of sort of fancy tech out there, right? Just try to see if it truly brings value for what you're doing, and take it for a ride, right? Like try to actually see, I mean, like Tobias mentioned, I think having people engaged is the most important thing. Otherwise, it looks like a voodoo. But the more you look at it, it's very approachable, right? Like AI, I mean, if you just sort of hone in on generative AI, many software engineers are able to contribute, right? At least for the value that you can actually get, like lots and lots of software engineers are jumping on it. The stuff that they don't understand, those are the stuff that even the folks that are building the model don't understand, right? For example, I mean, AI is the LLM model is still a black box for most of us, right? Like it's not deterministic. A response that you get for a question now is not the same response you will get. There's no guarantee, right? Like ChatGPT 4.5 might come and actually change the model behind the scenes for you, right? Like, and you could actually be in trouble. So I say spend time on sort of understanding the technology, ask the right questions to see how this is going to truly add value. And this is like a .com, right? Like there are companies that basically outsource, I mean, like large companies that just outsource their way to .coms. I mean, you can do that, that's an approach. But if you want to truly lead the market, right, like you have to embrace it, right? It's not between sort of AI and a person, it's it's AI against a person. It's more like a person and a person with AI is how you should think about this. So the more you jump on it, the more you understand what's going on.
Thank you. We had a lot of really, really good points. Definitely education, definitely creating value. I would say finding the right problems, right use cases to implement AI, but we definitely missed something. So I left a couple of minutes for your questions. So if there's anyone who has a question, I would love to hear and our panelists to answer. No one? Everybody's hungry. Okay, I would like to then. Oh, okay, please. Okay, here it is.
So could AI become like the great leveler, right? So for example, you may have companies that are cutting edge of technology, there are companies that are behind and using sort of older versions of older stacks and sort of older technologies, but could they all leapfrog, right? Could AI give them the ability to kind of leapfrog and kind of come to the same basis, the more of the tech companies?
Well, I do think there's a huge opportunity for startups right now because they don't need to like fight with a big legacy. They can take big risks. They can leverage the technology to the fullest amount. So if there's disruption, like I wouldn't say that AI right now is like really changing the game, at least in the short term, for like big companies competing amongst each other because they all share the same legacy. Like, they all have the same problems in the end. But especially for just young companies, startup companies, I think there might be opportunities, maybe not to disrupt whole markets, but at least to get a certain industry share also from other bigger companies that, at least makes them heard a little bit and makes them also move and, who knows what happens. And even we can see that in the AI research space as well, right? It's a very small startup with 700 employees, from which probably, just 50 or 100 have actually worked on that thing. And inside OpenAI, there's like a separate unit that is just doing ChatGPT, right? And they have driven those breakthroughs. It wasn't Microsoft, it wasn't Google, because they all have that problem of sharing that same legacy and also having huge risks when they do something wrong. So I think this is the time for startups, but yeah.
Please.
If your question is slightly more on existing companies, on sort of how they could sort of leapfrog, I would also add the incumbents in some way do have an edge because of the amount of data that they have, right? Given that most of the AI application right now feels like prompt engineering based on what we actually get from ChatGPT and stuff. But I do feel along the way, the future is more of fine-tuned models for like lots of different use cases. So incumbents definitely have an edge, but the key question is, can they capitalize on it, right?
Yeah, what I was thinking was as an example, right? Like some of the developing nations, like for example, India, for example, it was difficult to get a landline phone for a long time. But when cell phones came in, right, everybody adapted cell phones, right, very quickly. So even though they were behind the developed nations for landlines, they became equal when it came to cell phones, right? Could AI can help some of these companies who are kind of still stuck in the legacy land or not fully utilizing the latest tech, kind of leapfrog and come to the latest?
I definitely think yes, because it's just an evolutionary step that we are going through in the let's say automation and digitalization kind of era of industrialization of our businesses. But the component, the tricky component here is when there is a lot happening, the overall situation is blurry. Like let's take the champions, OpenAI. Of course, Microsoft didn't do a lot, but just look for the money in background that was needed, required to. But how it started was a kind of ideological approach, right? We want to deliver this and that. And when you see what is left and what has been there, it is a critical story. I was just, as you were talking, thinking about the other project from India. That one time I was there, it was a huge big data project. They managed to, implement this technology and everything and leapfrog. But what stays from that era is just a data system that works well. But what is the next step? So I think in AI term, we will have to solve a lot of issues, a lot of topics around regulation of it, ethical topics. I know they are boring, but we will need to talk about it at some point of time when this phase is going over, when you see why ChatGPT OpenAI went through that process 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago is exactly that internal conflict of, okay, are we non-profit or what are we, guys? Yeah. So this will ongo. There is an opportunity, I think, not only for companies, but as well for societies. But we need to sort this out first. And the only way we can sort this out is by trying it usefully and in a way that we can really argue for that. And we know pro and cons. Right now, we have no clue. That's the stage we are in, I think, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. The lunch is out there, so we're done. I would like to wrap it up, and you can catch up with our panelists during the lunch break. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, really. Thank you.
Thank you.